Bhante, when you mentioned that the gatekeeper, which is mindfulness, has to be vigilant about the 6 entry gates. Of course, we do our open awareness, we are enhancing the mindfulness.
Yes.
But is that enough when so much of the thinking and instincts, impulses, imaginations, memories, they come quick and fast? And in the Tibetan tradition, they say every second you have 60 thoughts coming and passing.
Okay.
Most of the time, with our very mundane mindfulness, we can't even know what is coming and what is going.
Right.
Some of the more prominent things we take note.
Right.
But a lot of stuff is subconscious and does things before you even are aware of it.
Exactly. So
a good gatekeeper has to assume a certain level of, perhaps, I don't know, is it sharper samadhi? Does one have to also develop samadhi and not just this touch and go mindfulness? And maybe the second related issue is mindfulness training enough, or does one also have to cultivate feeling dispassionate about the body, feeling its grossness, its foulness, its orifices, becoming really rejecting it somehow, so that you are not entranced by the signs, so that mindfulness may not be enough, but coupled with body meditations, body contemplations, as mentioned in the booklet also, you mentioned there are 16 body contemplations. Do we also need to do that? Because it's not easy, really, fending off desire, greed, etc., etc.
Okay. That's why practice makes perfect. That's why this open awareness that I'm advocating is something which is doable and practical in your daily life. So you do it as often as you can. So you create a habit every time you try to come back to the senses, every time you try to be in the present moment, so that you don't get dragged away by thoughts about the past or the future. If you have time, it's good to do formal meditation. Sit down, watch your breath, watch the rising and falling. These two practices will complement one another. Right? If you think that meditation means just sitting cross-legged, closing your eyes and watching one object, then for the rest of the day, you have a free time. You just do whatever you want, and when meditation comes, you need to do it for half an hour per day. Correct? So that's why now you need to incorporate that open awareness into your practice, into your daily life. So when it becomes second nature or even first nature to you, most of the time you are in the present. You won't think unnecessarily, because if you are with the present, then the moment the mind runs off, you can catch it. Why not? So there will be less and less of these stray thoughts, and even when thoughts arise, you will have the wisdom to differentiate whether this is productive thinking or this is unproductive, idle thinking. Then you will cut off, abandon the unproductive, idle thinking, come back to the present moment. If it's productive thinking, it's something you need to do, part of your obligation as a layperson, then you have to pursue them. I'm not asking you to stop thinking altogether. It's just here because we are doing guided meditation. That's why you are doing it. Alright, so mindfulness itself is not enough. What we're doing these 2 days is just a foundation to calm your mind. Then tomorrow we will go on to Sampajanya. Yeah? After you have composed your mind, then you start to look back at the subjective experiencer and try to understand things in terms of anicca, dukkha, anatta. Only when you can see things according to the 3 characteristics of impermanence, suffering, not self, and you can relate that to cause and conditioning, then only will you be able to become weary and disenchanted with things that are going on. Otherwise, what we are doing today is just the foundation for you to temporarily suppress your hindrances. But when it becomes second nature to you, then there's a very good foundation for you to go one step further to understand more about the body and the mind. Okay, hope that answers your question. And also, you saw also in the suttas from Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha mentioned 10 different ways of attaining Nibbana. Yeah, you just do one thing. You can do just Buddhanusati, you can just do Ānāpānassati, or you can just do Kāyagatāsati, or you can just do Manaranassati. You can still become weary and disenchanted and then attain Nibbana. So it really depends on the individual. Yeah, but some people, they need variety. Variety is the spice of life. They just do one thing, they get bored, and then they give up. So you could move around doing one thing or another, depending on your mood at that time and your state of mind. Yeah? So it's best to be able to do many things. Then you can move around. You hear me? Okay, hope that answers the question.
What about the body contemplations, like what monks do at the graveyard in post-mortems? And
yeah,
that sounds terribly morbid.
That's also part of the Asubha meditation. That's listed as one of the ways where you can attain Nibbana and get disenchanted. However, that is more for monks, because if you're a layperson, you do that, then your wife will start to complain. Or, everybody is Asubha, your children also Asubha, then that's the end of your lay life, then you have to start renouncing.
Bhante, we've been spending a lot of time looking at Kāyagatāsati. I'm trying to understand in the context of the workshop preparing for a good death, and also the root sutta. I'm trying to understand the link with the Kāyagatāsati, because from what I can see from the root sutta, it says protect the mind, but it doesn't say how to protect the mind. And I'm trying to understand why we're diving really deep into the Kāyagatāsati. So that's one of my questions. I have some other questions.
I talked about this several times in the course of today's sessions. I said, you went on to the second section to find out the relation between sense restraint and Kāyagatāsati, because sense restraint is instrumental in protecting the mind. Go ahead, right?
So the root sutta says mind is protected. So it means we are protecting the mind by restraining the senses.
Yeah. But in order to restrain the senses, you have to practice Kāyagatāsati. That's why it's so important.
Oh, so it's
so it's like only when the mind is established in Kāyagatāsati can the senses be restrained. Only when the senses are restrained, then can the mind be protected.
Bhante, that sounds very important. Can you say one more time?
In chapter 2, in the second section, the first sutta, Ganaka-Moggallana Sutta, tells us in very elaborate details about not grasping at the signs and features. Right? When you perceive anything through your senses, you should not grasp at the signs and features. Because if you do grasp at the signs and features, then you'll be invaded by evil, unwholesome states of liking and disliking, correct? So that means you're not protecting the mind. So the next sutta after that, there's 6 animals, talks about restraint and non-restraint. Why is a person unrestrained? Because he's not established in Kāyagatāsati. Why is a person restrained? Because he's established in Kāyagatāsati. So, restraint comes as a result of practicing Kāyagatāsati. But again, he never tells us how to practice Kāyagatāsati. Right? So that's why we are going on to this one to find out more about it. What actually is Kāyagatāsati and actually how to put it into practice in order to restrain the mind, in order to protect the mind, in order to have a good death. You get it? You see the whole logical sequence?
Yeah. Then just a little bit of the details of some of the sutta. The Kiṃsukopama tree, that one. This law of the city is consciousness, but the city is the body. And then earlier you say consciousness is not something we develop. The Citta and the Mano is. But since the Lord of the city in that case is the... I'm just trying to understand in the context of practice, what does it mean, the Lord of the city? Meaning it knows whatever is happening within the mind and the body. Just the bare knowing of it.
So here, consciousness is used as a general term. In this particular context, it is used to refer to the sentient part of an organism. It's probably equivalent to a citta. But here, consciousness seems to be associated with wisdom because it sees Nibbana. It sees according to reality. The message that the messengers came to give him, the message of reality, that is actually Nibbana. So it seems that this consciousness is the one that perceives Nibbana. So this is using the word consciousness actually to mean panya, wisdom. That's why it's called the Lord of the City. In an organism, it is the consciousness, the conscious part of the organism that is the Lord of the City, isn't it? Like you say, the Mano is the coordinator of the five senses. Right? So vijnana is used in this particular context in that way.
To mean wisdom as well.
Yeah. It means Mano, Citta and wisdom. All combined into one.
Okay. Lastly, just curious about the recollection of peace. What is that?
No, that actually refers more to a noble one. Someone who has already experienced Nibbana before. Nibbana is the highest peace that one can ever experience. But for those who have attained first, second, third stage of sainthood, Sotapan, Sakadagami and Anagami, they are not like an Arahant, whereas an Arahant can re-experience that experience of Nibbana. They only experience once, but they can recollect the experience. They can recollect the experience of peace. Like you have some very pleasant memories in the past. You cannot recreate that, but you can remember that in your mind. You cannot actually experience it again, the actual experience, but you can recall that experience you had in the mind. Right? Same thing for them. They cannot re-experience Nibbana. They can recall the awakening experience they had when they became Sotapan, became Sakadagami, or became Anagami. For Ariyas, for those who are awakened.
Bhante, in our Vipassana practice, we see the structure in more simplistic form. That means we are taught by our teachers, there is Citta, there is Cetasika, and there is Rupa, which is very easy for us to watch. But now, how Bhante explains it, it becomes more complex. So in the practice now, I'm not sure how to approach it. So can we say that the Mano are the Cetasikas in action? Or how would Bhante explain it through our practice lens?
The word Cetasika is actually used by the Abhidhammikas to refer to all those mental factors, the three aggregates, the three mental aggregates excluding vijnana. So like I said just now, Citta equals vijnana plus the three mental aggregates. That is the Abhidhamma model. So out of these three aggregates, you have Vedana, which is feelings, and then you have Sanya, which is perception, and you have Sankhara. Whatever is not feeling, whatever is not Sanya, must go under Sankhara. So all these things are termed as Cetasikas. Vedana is a Cetasika, and then also Sanya is a Cetasika, and everything else that is involved in tension under Sankhara is also a Cetasika, which includes mindfulness, joy, contact, experience, greed, hatred, delusion, metta, karuna, everything. Everything else that is not Vedana or Sanya or Vijnana goes under Sankhara. That's how you categorize it under the five aggregates. So what you have been practicing, most of the meditations that come from Burma are very much influenced by the Abhidhammikas. Very, very heavily influenced. So they explain everything in terms of the Abhidhammika. Abhidhammikas are those who subscribe to the Abhidhammic view of things. As I mentioned earlier, the Abhidhamma was designed in order to analyze things very minutely so that you can see anicca, dukkha, and especially anatta clearer in order for you to get out of samsara. Full stop. No more than that. But it does not mean that everybody must study Abhidhamma in order to get enlightened, because in the Buddha's time, the Buddha didn't teach Abhidhamma to people. He was supposed to have taught it to his mother up in Tamadingsa. That is nowhere found in the suttas. That is an invention of the Theras at that time. And I don't know where I heard it. I couldn't find the source now, but I heard it or read about it when I was in Burma, in a Burmese book, which said that the reason why the Buddha preached Abhidhamma in the Deva world and not in our human world is because you need to understand the Abhidhamma in one sitting. The whole of the Abhidhamma must be understood in one sitting in order for it to be effective. So the Buddha was supposed to have gone to Tamadingsa, and his former mother came from Tusita. down to Tawatingsa to listen to the Dhamma talk together with thousands of devas. And it's supposed to take 3 months. During that time, the legend has it that he was there for 3 months. And during his absence, he had his double, his mind-made body up there, and then his physical body came down every day to partake of food. And Āyasmā Sariputta would go and collect food for him, and then come and offer to the Buddha. Then the Buddha will give him the gist of the teachings to Āyasmā Sariputta. And later on, Āyasmā Sariputta would teach the Abhidhamma to his disciples. And that's how it was brought to us. That was what legend says, but no historical evidence, no sutta evidence. Okay, coming back to having to understand the Abhidhamma in one sitting for it to be effective. When the Buddha went up to Tawatingsa to teach, he was there for 3 earthly months. But according to Tawatingsa time, there was about 2.5 minutes. 2.5 minutes of Tawatingsa time. It's about 3 months here. So, can any human being sit there for 3 months without moving and listen to the talk from beginning to end? So that's why the Buddha didn't teach it to the humans. He taught it to the devas. Because in order for it to be effective, it has to be listened to it completely in one sitting. But anyway, coming back to that, what you have been practicing is more object-oriented. You are trying to look at the objects of the senses to see how they arise and pass away. But I encourage my yogis to do more subject-oriented practice, which means you look more at the subject than the object. The subject is the subjective experiencer. Why? For example, you hear something, a loud bang, when you're in this hall. The moment you hear something, a thought will arise in your mind, spontaneously. Oh, accident. I wonder what happened. Why did that thought arise? You could see the cause and condition. When I say cause, I mean present circumstances. The cause is because of the loud bang. Ears are in good order. You hear the bang even without your intention. That is the cause. What is the condition for you to have such a thought? The condition is because in the past you have heard the bang before, maybe you have witnessed it, and then you saw that it was an accident, a car hit something. So that was the past conditioning, your past experience that influenced your mind to have this thought that arises. Oh, accident occurred. I wonder what happened. If you had not heard that before, you have not witnessed an accident before, haven't heard that sort of sound, that sort of thought wouldn't have arisen. If you had not heard that sound, that thought also would not have arisen. So that thought arose because of cause and condition. You did not think that thought. That's why it's anatta, it's not yours. It came by itself due to cause and conditioning. Now, when you are able to see that experientially, then you understand what is anatta. Oh, I didn't think that thought. That thought arose because of cause and condition. Now, you can see and verify experientially the cause and condition for the subject. But you don't know what's happening outside. Can you determine the cause and condition for that bang or not? Cannot. But you can see the cause and condition for the subject, but not for the object. See, that's the reason why I prefer yogis to look more at the subject than the object. That's why when you do open awareness, we don't care about the objects. We don't want to look into the details of the object. We don't want to go and analyze it into the different elements and so forth. That's not our priority. The only reason why we want to anchor the mind to the 5 senses is to keep it busy so that you won't get caught up in obsessive and compulsive thinking and daydreaming. That's all. But once it's calm and composed, then you have to look back at the subject to understand how the subject behaves according to the 3 characteristics and cause and condition. So that is the rationale behind a more subject-oriented practice than an object-oriented practice. So when you have a subject-oriented practice and you actually experientially see cause and conditioning in the subject, it is more impactful than seeing it outside happening to the object. Because when you try to figure out the cause and condition for what happens outside at the 5 sense objects, most of them are speculative. You cannot really determine what is the cause and condition. But you can see the actual cause and condition for your own subjective reaction.
Bante, Just now you mentioned about the thought which arises, that is the rudimentary mind, which is associated with sanya. And after that, the thought which reacts, that is the subjective experiencer.
Right.
So, in this case, are these two minds the same mind or are they different mind?
Every mind is different. Every mind is a product of causes and conditions. It keeps on changing all the time. In English, we use the word mind as singular. Each one has only one mind. But in Pali, every moment is a different combination of vijnana and the three mental aggregates. You saw the glass of water with different colors? Yes, you have an infinite number of combinations, and they arise and pass away from moment to moment.
Like just now I asked, the Qigong considered as a form of meditation or no?
Qigong. If you're aware of your movements, that is like free and easy touch and go. You're aware of what's happening in the senses. But when you practice Qigong, you try not to just focus on your movements. You focus on the subjective experiencer. How is the mind reacting or responding to what is happening to your body as well as your senses? Because when you're practicing Qigong, your eyes are open, right? You're also hearing. You're also feeling other things besides the energy in your body. So if you want to practice Kāyagatāsati while you are doing Qigong, then you should watch the subject. How is the mind reacting or responding to what is happening at the senses? But if you want to practice Qigong healing, it's different. Then you have to focus on the energy in your body, and then you have to direct the energy to certain parts according to certain Qigong meditations.
Oh, there are differences. The Kasina meditation is the same as the eye-opening meditation like just now.
Well, the Kasina meditation, according to the Visuddhimagga, depends on whether you have done Kasina before in a past life. If you have done Kasina before in a past life, you just look at the moonlight, you close your eyes, you can see the Kasina. You can imagine a disc there, and you can keep the subject there for a long time. If not, you have not done it before, then you have to make a disc for yourself, and then put it in front of you, and then keep on staring at it, close your eyes, and try to imagine that image of what you see. When you lose that image, you open your eyes again and do it again and again. So this is the way Kasina meditation is described in the Visuddhimagga.
Then the meditation that we did just now?
No, it's not. We are moving all the time. In Kasina meditation, it's focused awareness. You focus on the Kasina and nothing else. And you close your eyes and you just focus on the image of the Kasina. But when you're doing open eye meditation, open awareness, you are not focusing on anything. You're supposed to be unfocused gaze and be aware of what's happening in your senses. Remember I said you look into infinity or look in the space in between you and an obvious object so that everything becomes indistinct? So you're not supposed to focus on anything. Everything is supposed to remain blur. You only focus when you want to fall asleep. Then you start to focus and jump from one object to another.
Very clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
You mentioned that Kāya means subjective experiences.
Right.
So how does it relate to Mano and Citta?
The subjective experiencer is a combination of both. Because Citta, if you understand Citta to mean the four mental aggregates, Vijnana plus Vedana, Sanya and Sankhara. The subjective experiencer has all these three plus Sankhara. Sankhara is the one that reacts or responds, but it is supported by Vedana and Sanya, and Vijnana must be there. And this happens in the Mano. It is the Mano Vijnana accompanied by the Sankhara and the Vedana and Sanya that constitutes the subjective experiencer. I think you do a bit blur.
Yeah. We'll try to absorb it later.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the Pali words or shall I?
No.
Okay, then I better use English. So we have the four mental aggregates,
Yeah.
and the Citta is supposed to comprise the four mental aggregates, which is feelings, perception, volitional formations, and consciousness. Correct?
Yeah.
These four. Now, these four can apply to any of our six senses. That means when the eye sees an object, there's eye consciousness. And there may not be Sankhara, but there is definitely Sanya and there is Vedana. There is feeling and there is also a very rudimentary recognition of what the eye sees. The same for all the six senses. Now, for the four senses, seeing, hearing, smelling and tasting, there may not be sankhara, there may not be intention involved. For example, your ears are in good working order. There's a loud sound, like you just heard the sound. You can't help but hear it, can you? There's no intention of wanting to hear or not wanting to hear. Automatically you hear. So sankhara is not present. There's no intention involved. But Vedana and Sanya are there. The ear recognizes that it's a sound. But it doesn't know what sort of sound it is. It just knows that there's a sound. There's input coming into the ear. Right? And according to the Abhidhamma, for these four senses, seeing, hearing, smelling, and tasting, the feeling is always neutral feeling. There's no pleasant or unpleasant. It's neutral. Now, so for these four, when any of these four senses experiences a sensory perception, a sensory stimulus, feeling is there, perception is there, feeling is neutral, perception is there, volition is not there, but consciousness is there. However, when it comes to the body, it's different. The body consciousness, when the body feels something, a physical sensation, for example, is either comfortable or uncomfortable. If it's neutral, then it's comfortable. Secondly, there is sanya, there is recognition of what is happening. And there is most probably also intention. And of course, there must be vijnana, there must be consciousness, or else you wouldn't be able to sense anything. Now, all of you know that we have our own immune system. And when bacteria enters the body, then the body will be able to recognize if it's a type that has invaded the body before. Because the body in the past would have produced antibodies. So the moment these bacteria enter the body will be able to recognize it. And then it will stimulate the immune system to produce the relevant antibodies to combat these bacteria. If you read science, you will know this. Now, in order for the body consciousness to be able to recognize, there must be sanya. There's perception. In order for the body consciousness to tell the glands or the immune system to produce a certain type of antibody, also needs volition. There's intention involved. But your mind doesn't know anything about it. The body is doing its own job. Same for the food that you eat. When you eat anything, immediately the body will be able to recognize, oh, this is carbohydrate, this is protein, this is amino acid, this is glucose. And then it will instruct the glands in the body to produce the enzymes. Oh, this enzyme, tyline, that's for carbohydrates. And this is for this is for that. So these things are all happening in the body without the mind knowing anything. So the body has got sankhara. But the other four, eyes, ears, nose, and tongue, don't have sankhara.
Okay.
So that is not a subjective experiencer. That is the body doing its own job. But the subjective experiencer is a mind that is reacting, the mano vijnana, together with the sankhara, together with the volition, that is reacting to the situation. You fall sick, you get fever, yeah? The body feels uncomfortable. The body is doing its job, the body is already instructing the immune system to produce the antibody, is fighting the bacteria. But then you feel uncomfortable, the mind doesn't like it. Ayo, I'm getting so feverish, so high temperature, I better go see a doctor, better get some aspirin or something. That is the subjective experiencer. That is the mind doing all this. The body is already reacting, but the body is not the subjective experiencer. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, it doesn't get more confused. Okay, one more thing about how the body can have its own sankhara, have its own intentions. If you've attended retreats before and you've done maybe a long retreat, 1 month or a few weeks or even a week, when your mind settles down, your body settles down, then sometimes you'll find the body swaying. Sometimes sway very gently, front, back, left. Sometimes very vigorously. Sometimes like you are in a trance. Cannot control. It's doing all these things. Actually, you can control if you want to. It depends on your meditation teacher. Whether your meditation teacher believes in Qi philosophy. According to Qi philosophy, or Chinese Qigong, the reason why people get sick is because the Qi, the energy in the body, is not flowing properly. You've got blockages. They don't talk in terms of germs and bacteria. Qi philosophy talks about the Qi getting stuck. The chi is very intelligent. It can unblock itself. The only problem is our conscious mind tries to be too clever and tries to suppress it. So when you're meditating and then your body is still and quiet, you're relaxed in body and mind, there's a time when the chi can balance itself. Otherwise, when you're stressed, when you're rigid, the chi cannot move. If your meditation teacher doesn't believe in chi or doesn't know about it, he will tell you, stop. When you meditate, you must sit absolutely straight. You cannot move. You must be still like a rock. Then you restrain yourself, you suppress that movement, and you can sit straight. But you don't feel comfortable. Now, if your meditation teacher is someone who is a Qigong practitioner like myself, or believes in the Qigong philosophy, I will ask my students to move. If the body wants to move, move lah. And then you can kill two birds with one stone without breaking your precept. You allow the body to move, but be fully mindful, be aware. So what is happening is the body is trying to balance itself. The intelligent chi will move according to its needs. And then at the end of the session, after it's worked out these things, then you'll find that, you feel very comfortable and very relieved. And sometimes you can even cure your ailment because of that. But of course, if your movements are very vigorous, don't do it in a group meditation. You'll scare off your neighbor. If it's really very vigorous, you better go and do it in your room. Sometimes this will happen for a certain period because the body is trying to heal itself. And once it's over, then next time the swaying and the movement will not come again. So that is the bodily sankhara. That is the bodily volition. The volition connected with the body consciousness. But the mind, the mano consciousness, is very powerful. The mind can override that. So when your meditation teacher says, don't move, the mind can say, okay, don't move. Then you can stay still. So the chi has been overridden by the mind. And then it cannot heal itself. So you get a good meditation, you get good samadhi, but you don't heal yourself. On the other hand, if you allow it to move mindfully, then not only you develop your mindfulness and composure, you also allow the chi to heal itself.
How do you practice Kāyagatāsati?
We are practicing Kāyagatāsati from the first meditation until now.
So we are talking about samadhi and
No, we are talking about
Sati.
open awareness.
Basically, even the meditation on the foulness of the body, all these things will actually be...
No. These are not Kāyagatāsati. Meditation on the foulness of the body is a separate meditation by itself. There is no Kāyagatāsati. Mindfulness of the breath is also not Kāyagatāsati. It's another separate meditation by itself. In the first sutta, in this section, Ekadhamma, one Dhamma, one thing, the Buddha said that there are 10 different types of different meditations, each of which can lead to Nibbana. Ānāpānassati is one, and then Kāyagatāsati is another. Okay, so there are different paths, depends on which suits you.
Okay, so regarding just now we are talking about this Kāyagatāsati. It covers Samatha and Vipassanā. But then normally for Samatha, they also talk about Ānāpānassati. So it seems like there's an overlapping of this meditation. Can Bhante please elaborate more on this?
Samatha is basically about stilling the mind, and Vipassana is about investigation. So when you're doing open awareness, doing Kāyagatāsati, when just free and easy touch and go, this is Samatha because it calms down the mind. You're not doing any investigation. When you start to investigate in the sense of inclining your mind to want to verify the three characteristics and to see cause and conditioning, that is when Vipassana starts. Same for Ānāpānassati. Ānāpānassati, when you start off, you just watch the breath, right? And then later on, then you start to do Vipassana by investigating, contemplating anicca and so forth. Both are different meditation subjects, but they start off with Samatha and then they end up with Vipassana.
So Bhante, in this case, can I safely say that if we do open awareness and also we do Vipassana, then we can actually sort of be on the right track?
Yeah, that's what this chapter 19 and 20 says.
So that means we don't actually need to go into the Ānāpānassati, isn't it? Because that is just extra, right?
No, it's not extra, it's just another pathway. You remember in this Ekadhamma, one thing, the Buddha lists 10 different types of meditation. Buddhanussati, Dhammanussati, Sanghanussati, and so forth, including Ānāpānassati, one type, and then Kāyagatāsati, another type, and then recollection of peace, another type. So it depends on your inclination and your temperament. Whichever suits you, you can follow that one.
When I read the booklet, most of the words I understand, but when we try to understand the whole passage or the paragraph or the things, I got confused. It's like I'm not reading English. It's like I'm more confused from trying to understand it. Right. And I've interviewed some people and it's the same. How would you suggest that we study this?
Yeah, you have to get used to the language. What we have now in our Pali scriptures is not what the Buddha really said. As I said earlier, there were no recorders during the Buddha's time. So people remembered everything by heart. And in order to transmit from one generation to another, they must come up with an easy way of remembering, of memorizing things. So they tend to create stock passages, and copy and paste, so that it's easy to remember. I mean, you don't expect the Buddha to preach like you read in the suttas. It'll be so boring, the Buddha repeating the same thing again and again.
Yeah, so the Buddha didn't speak like that, right?
No, probably he was speaking in a more natural way. For example, now I gave you a talk for 1 hour, alright? If you try to remember rote what I told you, how would you ever transmit it from one person to another? You only take the main points, right? You take the main points and then you codify it in a certain way so that you can pass it to another person and that person can easily remember and transmit further on. So it is not the exact words of the Buddha. These are the main points that the Buddha talked about. Condensed. It's like a zip file, compressed.
So it's okay we don't understand.
It's a matter of getting used to it. Yeah, it's a matter of getting used to it. When you read more and more of it, then you know, that's what it's trying to say.
And then also, Bandei's discussion questions. Now I realize discussion number 2 is, can you see any link between restraint of the sense faculties and Kāyagatāsati? And then in discussion 3, only you realize now is the time we try to explain what is Kāyagatāsati.
Yeah.
So in front we are trying to talk about it, but before we understand it.
No, because it's very obvious, when you see in the suttas, the sense restraint is mentioned, Kāyagatāsati is mentioned, and then in order for you to restrain, you have to practice Kāyagatāsati. So there's a link. Can't you see? There's a link, but we don't know exactly what it is. So that's why we go on to the next section to find out.
It's just finding out the literal links. Not trying to analyze anything, just from the text we try to find out the obvious links.
Right. I mean, it's still analysis. You need to analyze to piece things out together. But it's not as easy. As I said, you only got 40 minutes. I spent how many years trying to figure out, and I still couldn't figure it out. I had to rely on somebody's PhD.
Okay.
So, no fault of yours. It's just an exercise to start training your brain, not to simply accept, but to start to think.
I've attended Pandey's workshop, Sutta workshop, 3 times.
I cannot understand.
3 times I left with even more blur. So we learn a lot of things, and then we have more things that we have questions.
According to what I understand today, the Kāya included mindfulness, because the gatekeeper is the mindfulness, right?
No. The one is in the simile of the gate,
yes.
Of the city gate.
So it's the mindfulness of the 6th sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this case, Kāyagatāsati, can we say it's awareness of the awareness?
Yeah.
So is it something like this?
Yeah, it's also the awareness of the awareness is looking back at the subjective experience.
So it's the...
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It is.
Okay. Now we have this Ekadhamma Sutta. Here it says this is the one thing that will lead to...
lead to Nibbana.
I remember in the Satipaṭṭhāna Sutta, also the same thing. There is only one way and this is...
No. There is a misleading translation. It's a translation for Ekayano. Ekayano has often been translated as the only way. But no, Ekayano does not mean the only way. It is the one way. It is a direct path. The one way means there may be another way. This is the one way to the purification of beings. So if you talk about the only way, then the only way is the Noble Eightfold Path. That is the only way.
So there are many suttas to enable us to walk the path.
There are many different meditations.
From different suttas.
Yeah. It depends. Because the Buddha gave the talks to different people, and he would suit his talk according to the capability and potential of the person.
Thank you, Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu.
Bhante, earlier we talked about Mano and Citta. Then one of our earlier slides just now talk about Mano and the subjective experiencer. So where does Citta fit into this model?
The Abhidhammic understanding of the Citta includes everything, all the four mental aggregates. So what we have tried to distinguish in the context of sense restraint and Kāyagatāsati. Kāya refers to the reactive part of the mind, which involves sankhara, whereas Mano refers to the non-reactive part of the mind, which does not involve sankhara. And both of these are Citta.
If we say that Mano is a non-reactive part,
yes,
then the Dhammapada versus...
No. This is in the context of sense restraint. You see, because the Buddha uses different words differently in different contexts. That the mind in the forerunner of all things, right. That is Mano. He didn't use the word Citta. Whereas in our root sutta, the word the Buddha used was Citta. You should guard the Citta. But rightfully, if you follow the Dhammapada, you should guard the Mano, not the Citta. Correct? Right, so you have to look at context in which the words are used. Sometimes different terms are used with the same meaning.
And some words used in different contexts.
Correct. So we cannot go all across and say this stands for everything. You have to talk in specific context.
Okay, I'll digest it.
We said that intention with the result of thought is manokamma, the intention with verbal action is vachikamma, and intention with physical action is kayakamma. This intention, is it cetana, vitakka, or something else?
Cetana.
And what means vitakka then?
Vitakka is initial thinking.
Okay.
You must remember that all these mental factors arise simultaneously. So when there's vitakka, there is also cetana.
Okay. What about sankappa then is manokamma?
Sankappa and vitakka are sometimes used synonymously.
Okay. So in that context, this is cetana.
In which context?
Manokamma, vachikamma.
Yeah, okay. Cetana. But it is the cetana that arises together with the mano vijnana. All of them, whether it's kaya kamma, vachi kamma, or mano kamma, all stem from the cetana that arises with the mano vijnana. However, if it's going to be manifested in the body, then it's called kaya kamma. If it's going to be manifested in speech, then it's called vachi kamma. If it's going to be manifested only in the mind, then it's called mano kamma.
Okay. So again, vitakka would be not like this intention?
No. Now, if you look at the classification of the five aggregates, you only have rupa, vedana, sanya, sankhara, and vijnana, correct?
Yes.
Form, feelings, perception, volitional formations, and consciousness. Right?
Yes.
So, whatever does not go into vedana or sanya or consciousness, where could it go? Goes into sankhara. Correct. So, vitakka is not vedana, vitakka is not sanya, vitakka is not consciousness. So, it's a combination of all, maybe. In vitakka, when you think of something, there's sanya involved. Yeah, there could also be feeling, right? There could also be cetana. And of course, there must be consciousness. If there's no consciousness, there's no vitakka. So they are all very closely interrelated and they arise simultaneously.
Because in the Sati Samyutta, it tells us to be aware of sanya, vedana, and vitakka.
Yeah, correct.
So in that sense, vitakka could mean the intention.
It may be, is vitakka associated with cetana?
Okay.
Because Vitakka would have to be classified under Sankhara.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not Vedana, it's not Sanya, it's got to be Sankhara, right? So if it's got to be Sankhara, if you look at the Sutta definition of Sankhara, it's always volitional.
So if I understand well, this Kāya here, Kāyagatāsati, means being aware of the reactive part of the mind, right?
Right.
Because I come from Goenkaji tradition, and he interprets Sankhara as reaction. Like he says that Sankhara is reaction, and being equanimous is not reacting. So his instruction is to observe Sankhara without reacting.
Is the Sankhara as reaction that he's talking about? Is it a passive reaction or is it an active reaction?
It's more an unconscious reaction.
It's unconscious but active or passive? For example, you have a memory, a past memory of a past event, of a past traumatic event.
Yeah.
Would you call that unconscious or conscious?
Well, the mind story that you would make about it is a conscious, it's...
No, I'm talking about the first memory that arises.
Okay.
Yeah, that I would say is the mano. That is the rudimentary sanya that arises without sankhara. And then if you react to it, you don't like the memory, you try to push it away, or it's a pleasant memory, you try to relive it and recreate the nice feelings. That would be the active sort of sankhara.
Okay, makes sense.
Kāya, when you define it as subjective experience.
No, you're talking about Kāya or Kāyagatāsati?
Kāya.
Kāya is subjective experience.
Yeah, but is that active or passive?
Active.
Yes. So, what about in the case of Puru and Puhen? Does it fall under this category of Kāya?
Okay, that Puru is also actually active. That is active in the sense of, you could say it's mindfulness. You could say it's an awareness of what's happening.
Yeah.
It depends on what you actually mean. That awareness could refer to mano-vijnana itself.
That is what I'm thinking. So
that is like the pure distilled water without the other mental factors involved. It doesn't appear by itself. There's always sanya or vedana or sankhara with it.
So, am I right to assume that what Bhante defined as Kāya in this context also includes the mano-vijnana, looking through the mind door?
When you're talking about sati, so where is sati? Is sati also part of the subjective experience or not?
Yes and no, because there seems to be different aspects and different levels of
Exactly.
sati.
So the Buddha is always straddling between ultimate reality and conventional reality.
Okay.
Yeah? Sometimes he mixes all the two. So whatever that makes sense to you and it can help you in your practice, that's the way it is.
Because the way I understand Purupuhen is non-reactive. It's like what Sayadaw mentioned about
awareness of the awareness, correct?
Not awareness of it's just a state of pure knowing where the mind doesn't react. It just sits still and just observe.
The observing mind is mindfulness.
Yeah, but it is not react. It's not active in that sense.
Mindfulness does not react. Mindfulness is just a quality of the mind that is able to bring a past object to the mind's extension. Full stop.
Okay.
There's no wisdom involved. Wisdom is another department of the mind.
But in the Purupuhen, there's also the knowing aspect, which is the wisdom aspect.
That is something else. I mean, that is another department of the mind.
Right.
The mind comes in different departments.
Right.
Each one has got its own job to do. Right? Mindfulness' job is just to bring a past object to the mind's attention. Full stop. And after that, wisdom will have to digest the information, process the information, and understand what it means.
So, am I right to say that Bhante's definition of Kāya includes this Purupuhen?
I would think that in the context of sense restraint, it is more of the active.
That is active, but the Purupuhen, the way I understand it, is non-reactive. So that's why I understand Bhante's definition of Kāya includes this.
Okay, there's another thing, because I was trying to link Kāyagatāsati with sense restraint.
Okay.
Alright? So in the context of sense restraint, it makes sense.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
To say
Because
that it is
an
the reactive part of the mind, and you're trying to restrain that reactive part of the mind so that you don't grasp the signs and features. Correct or not? I have not gone beyond that to include the Puru into it.
Okay.
So if you want to, I guess you can. As you can see later, when I'm going to show you in the subsequent slides, it seems that you could also include everything.
So in that sense, Kāya is both active and passive. Reactive and non-reactive.
You see, if it's just an observer, and you're observing things, that is panya. Panya is not passive. Panya is active. It is the karma that leads you out of samsara.
Yeah, but this panya is not a state of doing something.
Well, I mean, that's only using in a conventional sense, being and doing in a conventional sense. You're not actively trying to get something. You're just staying there, being aware of things. Right? So, it's a matter of semantics and terminology.
And scenarios.
Right. So, let's not talk too much about that.
Personal discussion.
In Bhante Analayo's book, Satipaṭṭhāna, Direct Path to Realization, he says that in the Dhammanupassana part, observing the 5 hindrances then brings to observing the 5 aggregates, then observing the 6 senses and the 7 bojjhangas and realization. So I was wondering if this Kāyagatāsati were very different from the Satipaṭṭhāna actually, or they're very linked together because of this new interpretation.
This Taiwanese professor, Professor Guan Sifu, after he read through chapters 19 and 20 of Anguttara Nikaya Book of Ones, speculated or conjectured that initially the Buddha only taught Kāyagatāsati. But because the term was so enigmatic, later on he elaborated by introducing the 4 Satipaṭṭhānas. Because Kāyagatāsati covers everything. The 4 Satipaṭṭhānas is broken down into physical body, and then feelings, mental states, and dhammas.
This morning, when we discussed about Vijnana, Citta, and Mano, then I did mention, according to what Bhikkhu Bodhi said, Citta basically is the subject of thoughts. So it's the center of personal experience. So what is the difference between his explanation of Citta with the Kāya that you mentioned, which is a subjective experience?
Yeah, as I said, the Buddha uses words, same words with different meanings in different contexts. Or he may use different words with the same meaning in different contexts.
So I can understand the Kāya that you mentioned here basically is the Citta.
Well, Citta is everything. Citta is everything, actually comprises anything that has to do with consciousness. From the Abhidhammic point of view, even your eye consciousness that arises together with Sanya and Vedana, that is also considered a Citta, not just the 6th sense.
Then you are suggesting when we want to translate Kāyagatāsati, so it will be good that we can translate it into mindfulness of subjective experience.
Actually, to use a non-Buddhist term, is very simple. Introspective awareness. Introspective awareness, you're looking inwards, looking at what's happening to the mind. If you want to be more pedantic in translating word for word, then you have to use retrospective awareness or mindfulness of the personal experiencer or the subject or the subjective experiencer.
Okay. Thank you, Bhante.